I never expected my life to take such a sharp turn. My name is Jake, and I used to think I had it all figured out. I had a decent job, a nice home, and most importantly, a beautiful wife named Sarah. We'd been married for 5 years, and while every marriage has its ups and downs, I thought we were solid. That was until I noticed the changes in Sarah. At first, they were subtle, little things that didn't raise any immediate alarms. She started working late more often, claiming it was due to some project at her office. I didn't think much of it. After all, her job as a marketing manager was demanding and I appreciated her dedication. But then there were the late-night texts. I could hear the ping of her phone in the middle of the night, and when I asked her about it, she brushed it off, saying it was just work. I wanted to trust her, so I let it slide. I mean, who wouldn't want to believe their spouse? Yet there was something gnawing at me, an instinct that told me something wasn't right. It all came crashing down one fateful evening. I had decided to surprise Sarah with dinner after her late shift. I remembered how much she loved Italian food from that little place down the street, so I picked up a couple of her favorite dishes. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed her car was already home. That was odd. She'd said she was working late. My heart raced as I walked toward the front door, the smell of fresh marinara filling the air. As I entered the house, I heard laughter coming from the living room. I froze. The sound was distinctly not just Sarah's. I crept toward the source, my chest tightening with dread. I peeked around the corner and what I saw shattered my world. There on our couch was Sarah, all cozied up to my former boss, Tom. They were laughing, their bodies too close, sharing something that clearly went beyond just friendship. My gut twisted into knots as I stood there, paralyzed by disbelief. It didn't take long for the shock to turn into fury. I cleared my throat loudly, and both of them jumped. Sarah's face turned pale as she quickly moved away from Tom, her eyes darting between him and me. "Jake, what are you doing home?" she stammered, her voice shaky. I could see the panic in her eyes, and it only fueled the fire igniting in me. "Funny, I was about to ask the same thing. I thought you were working late," I shot back, my voice low and dangerous. Tom stood up, trying to play the peacemaker, but I was having none of it. "Get out," I growled, not wanting to deal with his cowardly attempts to intervene. He hesitated but then quickly grabbed his jacket and headed for the door, casting a nervous glance back at Sarah as he left. Once it was just the two of us, the air was thick with tension. I confronted Sarah, demanding answers. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words that came out were infuriating. "It's not what it looks like, Jake. We were just talking." Her excuse was laughable, but I could see she was trying to think on her feet. Tom needed some help with a marketing campaign, and I was just giving him some advice. That's all. My anger boiled over, and I waved my hands in frustration. "Advice? Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're on the verge of a full-blown affair." Her expression shifted from desperation to defiance, and that's when I knew she'd been lying to me all along. The emotional impact hit like a freight train. I felt betrayed, angry, and utterly devastated. This was the woman I had loved, who I had shared my life with. Suddenly, she seemed like a stranger. I could barely process the whirlwind of feelings. Was I supposed to be heartbroken or furious? It was all too much, and I had to get out of the house. I took a drive through the neighborhood, the familiar streets now feeling foreign. I needed to clear my head and figure out what to do next. The betrayal was fresh. The pain was sharp. I didn't want to make any rash decisions just yet. When I finally returned home, I felt a mix of sadness and resolve. I knew I had to confront the reality of what had happened and decide how to move forward. Would I fight for my marriage, or was it time to take a different path? The answers were all tangled up in my emotions, but one thing was clear: I wouldn't let this go unpunished. That night, as I lay in bed alone, a plan began to form in the back of my mind. I'd show Sarah that I could rise from this betrayal, that I could thrive despite the pain, and I'd make sure she saw every bit of it. My journey for revenge was just beginning. As the days passed, the initial shock began to morph into a simmering rage. I found myself lying awake at night, plotting a course of action that would redefine my life. I couldn't just sit back and wallow in betrayal. I needed to take control. The more I thought about Sarah's affair with Tom, the more I realized how I wanted my life to unfold. I wanted to rise above this betrayal, not just for my own sake, but to prove to them both that I was better than they thought. I began my plans for revenge by focusing on my career. I had been working at a tech startup for a few years, but I knew I could do better. Tom had managed to climb the corporate ladder with ease, and I had always felt that I was overlooked. Now, I saw this as an opportunity to not only advance my career, but also to show Sarah the person she was throwing away. The idea of taking Tom's job, or at least a position that would bring me closer to him professionally, became my new obsession. I updated my resume and hit the job market hard. I networked like crazy, reaching out to old contacts and applying for every position that seemed even remotely relevant. I knew I had the skills and experience. It was just a matter of getting in front of the right people. It felt good to channel my energy into something productive, something that would make me feel powerful. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her deceitful charade. She acted as if nothing had happened, returning to her usual routine. She'd smile at me over breakfast, talk about her day, and even make plans for the weekend. It was as if I were living with a stranger who had forgotten the hurt she inflicted. I wanted to lash out, to confront her again, but I held back. I wanted her to think everything was fine while I plotted my next move. Just a few weeks after that fateful confrontation, I received a call about a job interview at a competing firm, a place known for its aggressive culture and high-profile clients. The role was a significant upgrade from where I was currently. I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was my chance. I prepared for the interview relentlessly, studying the company's projects, values, and competitors. I rehearsed my answers, focusing on how I could bring value to the team. Every hour spent preparing was a step closer to the revenge I craved. On the day of the interview, I put on my best suit, a dark navy that made me feel sharp and confident. I looked in the mirror and saw someone transformed. I was no longer the hurt husband. I was a man on a mission. The interview went surprisingly well. I connected with the interviewer and showcased my skills effectively. By the time I left, I felt hopeful for the first time since the betrayal. I knew I was capable of something great, and I was ready to make it happen. As the days turned into weeks, I started to hear back from potential employers. One firm expressed a strong interest in me, and I felt like I was on the verge of a breakthrough. Meanwhile, Sarah remained oblivious to the changes happening in my life. She continued her routine, and I didn't mention the job interviews. I wanted to keep her in the dark, letting her think I was still the same supportive husband. That was part of my strategy. She needed to see that I was moving on, thriving without her. Finally, the day came when I received an offer that made my heart race. I was offered a position at a company rivaling Tom's firm, with a salary that was significantly higher than what I was making. It was a huge accomplishment, and I knew that it would put me in a position to succeed in my career. With this success, I could finally show Sarah and Tom just how wrong they were about me. I accepted the offer, and as I signed the contract, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. I had taken control of my life, and soon, I would be in a position to confront Sarah with my newfound success. I envisioned her face when she realized that I had not only moved on but was thriving in a way she never expected. But my plans didn't stop there. I wanted to ensure that Tom knew that I had taken what was once his, and that I was now in a position of power. The day after I accepted the offer, I decided to drop the news to Sarah. I wanted to see how she would react to my success. I waited until dinner, making sure to prepare her favorite meal to set the stage. As we sat down, I casually mentioned that I received a job offer and would be starting next month. Her reaction was immediate. She looked up from her plate, eyes wide. "What? A new job? Why didn't you tell me?" There was a flash of something in her eyes, maybe jealousy or perhaps a hint of regret. I leaned back in my chair, a small smirk on my face. "I wanted to surprise you. I guess good things come to those who wait." I could see the wheels turning in her mind, and I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. Her response was immediate, but it was what I expected. "That's great, Jake. I'm happy for you." But it felt forced, and I knew that beneath her surface-level enthusiasm was the realization that I was on an upward trajectory while she remained stagnant. As I watched her struggle to maintain her composure, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. I was ready to show her that I was so much more than the man she betrayed. My success was just the beginning, and I was determined to make sure she saw my rise, even if it meant rubbing it in her face. This was my time, and I was going to take every moment of it. I could feel the energy shifting, and I was ready to take the next step in my plan. I would make Sarah and Tom realize the consequences of their actions. I was moving on, and I was going to do it in a way that would leave a lasting impression. The narrative was mine to write, and I was ready to pen the next chapter. With my new job offer in hand, I felt more energized than I had in months. I was determined to make this a turning point in my life. It was time to execute the second part of my plan, ensuring that both Sarah and Tom would see my success up close and personal. I wanted them to understand the magnitude of what they had lost, and I was intent on doing it in the most public way possible. As I settled into my new role at the tech firm, I quickly realized how dynamic and demanding the environment was. The team was passionate, and the projects we were working on were exciting. I dove in head first, eager to prove myself. My boss, a driven woman named Lisa, recognized my potential and gave me the freedom to take on significant responsibilities right away. I was thriving, and I could feel the momentum building. While I was busy establishing myself at work, I also made it a point to maintain an air of mystery around Sarah. I stopped sharing details about my life, keeping her at arm's length. I wanted to create a distance, making her aware that I was no longer the husband who would drop everything for her. But I did not completely shut her out. I still attended social gatherings and family events where we would cross paths. My strategy was simple. I wanted her to see me succeeding, even if I was doing it without her support. One evening, I found myself at a networking event hosted by my new company. It was a chance to connect with other professionals in the industry, and I was excited to impress. As I mingled, I unexpectedly ran into Tom. He was there representing his company, and he didn't see me until I was right in front of him. His face turned pale as he recognized me, and I could see the unease settle over him. "Jake, didn't expect to see you here," he said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I could tell he was nervous, realizing that I was now in a position to be a competitor. "Funny how life works, huh? I just accepted a position at Tech Innovators," I replied, watching his reaction closely. The surprise in his eyes was gratifying. "Looks like we'll be seeing a lot more of each other, huh?" He stammered an awkward response, trying to regain his composure. "Well, the more competition, the better, right?" He tried to brush it off casually, but I could feel the tension in the air as the reality of my new position sank in. As we chatted, I could sense the changes in our dynamic. I felt empowered, knowing that I held the upper hand now. I was no longer just Jake, Sarah's husband. I was a rising star in the industry. I watched as Tom struggled to maintain the facade of confidence, and it felt like sweet revenge for all the hurt he had caused. I spent the rest of the evening networking and making valuable connections. With every handshake and conversation, I felt the distance between my past life and my new reality grow larger. I was building a reputation, and it was thrilling. I could feel Sarah's distant shadow looming, and I knew she would soon be reminded of everything she'd lost. A few weeks later, I received an invitation to a company gala. This was a high-profile event, and I knew it would be the perfect opportunity to showcase my success. I decided to bring a date, someone I could impress everyone with. After some consideration, I chose Jenna, a colleague from work. We had developed a friendly rapport, and I could tell she was interested in more than just a professional relationship. She was smart, attractive, and ambitious, everything I wanted in a partner right now. The night of the gala arrived, and I was buzzing with anticipation. I rented a sleek tuxedo and was ready to make a statement. As I arrived at the venue, I could immediately see the glamour and prestige that surrounded the event. The atmosphere was electric, with laughter and music reverberating through the grand hall. When I walked in with Jenna on my arm, I felt like a king. All eyes turned to us, and I could see the shock on some faces, particularly those of my former colleagues from Tom's firm. I made a point to navigate the room, engaging with everyone I could, and it felt incredible to be in the spotlight. As I mingled, I spotted Sarah across the room. She was there with friends, laughing and sipping a drink, but the moment our eyes met, the smile faded from her face. I could see the realization wash over her. She hadn't expected to see me here, and certainly not with a beautiful woman at my side. The corner of my mouth curled into a smirk. It felt good to see. Startled, a small glimpse of the anguish I had felt just months earlier. Throughout the evening, I made sure to keep my distance from Sarah while still allowing her to observe me from afar. I introduced Jenna to people as my date, casually mentioning my new job and the exciting projects in the pipeline. I could feel Sarah's eyes on me, and I relished in the power dynamic shifting. I was no longer the man she had cheated on. I was someone she wished she still had in her life. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted to make my presence known, especially to Tom. As the night progressed, I spotted him talking to a group of guests, unaware of my approach. I sauntered over, Jenna by my side, and greeted him with a smile that felt sharp as a knife. "Tom, great to see you, buddy," I said, clapping him on the back. The surprise on his face was priceless. "How's business treating you?" He tried to maintain his composure, but I could see he was rattled. "Going well, Jake. Just keeping busy," he replied, his voice strained. I leaned in closer, my tone dropping, just enough for him to feel the weight of my words. "You know, it's tough out there, but I'm excited about the direction my company is heading. Things are really taking off for me." I could see the tension in his jaw as I continued. "I hope you're ready for some serious competition." I laughed lightly, and Jenna joined in, giving me an amused glance. Watching Tom squirm was worth every moment of pain I had endured. I could see the flicker of anxiety in his eyes, and I knew I had struck a nerve. As the evening wore on, I felt like I was floating on air. I was reclaiming my narrative, and I could see the impact it was having on both Sarah and Tom. I reveled in the thought that they would be left feeling regretful, perhaps even a little ashamed of their decisions. I was no longer the victim. I was the victor. By the time the gala wrapped up, I felt a sense of satisfaction that I hadn't experienced in ages. Jenna and I exchanged numbers, and I could feel a spark between us. I knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would thrive both personally and professionally. As I drove home, I couldn't help but smile. I had taken control of my life in a way that I never thought possible. I was ready to move forward, and I was determined to show Sarah and Tom that my success wouldn't just be a fleeting moment. It would be the foundation of a brighter future. My revenge was just beginning, and I was eager to see where it would lead me next. The days following the gala felt electrifying. I had successfully reestablished my identity in the professional world, and I was enjoying the attention that came with it. Jenna and I had started seeing each other more frequently, and it felt refreshing to be with someone who appreciated me for who I was, not for who I used to be. The relationship was lighthearted and fun, offering a welcome distraction from the turmoil of my past. Meanwhile, my interactions with Sarah remained strained. It was clear that she was struggling to cope with my new life. She attempted to reach out on several occasions, inviting me to lunch or casual gatherings. I politely declined every time. I wanted her to understand the consequences of her actions, that I was moving on without her, and that my success wasn't hers to claim anymore. One afternoon, I received a text from Sarah asking to meet. At first, I hesitated but then decided to agree on my terms. I wanted her to see how far I had come, and I felt somewhat empowered by the prospect of standing before her as a man transformed. I suggested we meet at a coffee shop, a neutral ground where I could control the environment. As I walked into the coffee shop, I spotted Sarah sitting at a table, nervously fiddling with her hands. The warmth of the place contrasted with the coldness that had settled in our relationship. I approached her and she looked up, her expression a mix of hope and uncertainty. "Thanks for meeting me, Jake," she began, her voice shaky. "I wanted to talk about everything." "Sure, let's talk," I replied, taking a seat opposite her. I could see her waiting for me to engage, but I remained silent, letting her fill the void. "I know things have been rough between us since, you know," she started, hesitating. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." I raised an eyebrow, encouraging her to continue. I regret what happened with Tom. I made a terrible mistake, she said, her eyes pleading for understanding. I thought I could handle things without hurting you, but I see now how wrong I was. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to unleash my pent-up feelings. Instead, I decided to take a different approach. It's not something that's easily forgiven, Sarah, I replied, keeping my tone even. You chose to betray my trust. I know, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, I just got caught up in everything and it spiraled out of control. I leaned forward, matching her intensity. You need to understand this isn't just about you and me anymore. I've moved on. I have a new job, new opportunities, and a new life. I'm doing great, and I want to keep it that way. Her expression shifted from sadness to something more defensive. So, you're just going to throw it in my face. You found someone new, and now you're acting like you're better than me. No one's acting better, Sarah. I'm just living my life, something you chose not to be a part of. This isn't revenge, it's just me taking back what's mine, I replied, my voice steady. I wanted her to see that I wasn't here to fight, but I was also not going to let her manipulate my feelings. I never wanted to lose you, Jake. I thought we could work through it, she said, her voice trembling. I could see the cracks in her facade, and while part of me felt a pang of sympathy, the other part of me felt empowered. I think we both know that's not going to happen. Trust is a fragile thing, and you shattered it. After a moment of silence, I changed the subject, wanting to put distance between us emotionally. How work going for you? I asked, almost casually. She looked taken aback by the sudden shift. It's fine, I guess, just the usual stress. Still with that marketing firm? I inquired, feigning interest. Yeah, but it's not the same without you around, she replied, and I could tell the words were meant to stir something. In me, I shook my head, wanting to make my stance clear. You need to find your own way, Sarah. I'm not coming back to that life. I've got too much going for me now. Her face fell, disappointment etched into her features. I see. I really thought we could salvage something from this. There it was, the glimmer of hope she was holding on to, and I felt a sense of power in knowing I could deny it. You have to understand, I'm not the same person I was when you betrayed me. I'm stronger and I intend to keep moving forward, I stated firmly. After a few more minutes of awkward conversation, I could see her deflated. I stood up to leave, and for a moment she reached out, grabbing my wrist. Jake, please don't go. I pulled away gently but firmly. I think we've said enough for today. It's time for both of us to move on. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had faced her, asserting my strength and my decision to move forward. I knew that I had to keep reminding myself that I was in control now. Later that evening, I met Jenna for dinner. Sharing the news of my encounter with Sarah felt cathartic. She still thinks there's a chance, doesn't she? Jenna asked, a look of sympathy on her face. She's holding on to something that isn't there anymore, I said, taking a sip of my drink. But I'm not going back. I'm focused on my career and my future. Jenna smiled, and I could see the admiration in her eyes. That's the spirit. You deserve to be happy, and if she can't see that, then it's her loss. As the night progressed, our connection deepened. Jenna was supportive and engaging, listening intently as I shared more about my work and my aspirations. The chemistry between us was undeniable, and I felt a warmth that reminded me of what I had been missing. My journey had taken unexpected turns, but I was finally moving toward the life I wanted. I was reclaiming my happiness, and Sarah's presence was becoming less significant as I embraced this new chapter. I was ready to face whatever came next with confidence, but I still had a score to settle with Tom. He needed to understand that my rise in the industry wasn't just about me, it was personal. I was determined to ensure that my success would be the final nail in the coffin of their past decisions. As I headed home that night, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to take the next step in my plan, and I was eager to see how Tom would respond to the reality that I was no longer the man they had betrayed. The game was on, and I was just getting started. With the taste of newfound freedom and success fresh in my mouth, I started plotting my next steps. I felt invigorated, ready to take on the world and show both Sarah and Tom that my life was flourishing without their influence. My newfound relationship with Jenna was blossoming, and I was eager to embrace that. but I also knew I needed to make my impact on Tom clear. I started by digging deeper into Tom's firm, learning everything I could about their upcoming projects and initiatives. My new job had given me access to industry resources and news that were invaluable. I found out that Tom's company was working on a major product launch that would put them on the map, but it was also a significant risk. If it failed, it could mean serious repercussions for their reputation and bottom line. I decided that this was my opportunity. The more I learned, the more I realized that this launch could be my ticket to solidify my own standing in the industry while simultaneously undermining Tom's. I could position myself as a knowledgeable professional and steer potential clients toward my new company, thus weakening Tom's position. It felt like a chess game, and I was ready to make my move. As I settled into my routine at Tech Innovators, I became more involved in the strategic planning sessions for our own product launches. I pitched ideas and strategies that impressed my superiors, and they started to trust me with more responsibility. The buzz around our initiatives grew, and I could sense the momentum building. I also began to develop professional relationships with influential figures in the industry, laying the groundwork for potential collaborations and partnerships. One evening, during a networking event, I ran into a former colleague from Tom's firm, Lisa, who had left for a better opportunity. We struck up a conversation and I casually inquired about the product launch that Tom was leading. Lisa shared some insider information about their timeline and the challenges they were facing. It was clear that Tom's team was under a lot of pressure and they were struggling to meet their ambitious goals. That's interesting, I mused, pretending to absorb the information. I've heard a lot about that project. It sounds like quite a gamble. Yeah, it really is. If it doesn't go well, it could spell trouble for everyone involved, she replied, her concern evident. I nodded, feigning empathy while mentally calculating how I could use this information to my advantage. Well, I'm sure your new projects will be more successful. You're definitely in a better place now, I said, redirecting the conversation back to her. As the weeks went by, I put my plan into action. I began to circulate information about my company's strengths and innovations among my new contacts, subtly positioning us as a more viable option in the market. I leveraged social media and industry forums to highlight my company's capabilities, ensuring that potential clients saw us as the go-to choice. It was satisfying to watch as interest in our projects began to grow, while Tom's firm struggled to keep up with their launch timeline. Meanwhile, Sarah continued to reach out sporadically, but I remained distant. I could tell that she was becoming frustrated and desperate, and that only fueled my resolve. One day, she texted me asking how my new job was going, and I couldn't resist giving her a glimpse into my success. Loving it. Just wrapped up a big presentation with the team. We're going to crush our launch next quarter, I replied, feeling a sense of satisfaction as I hit send. Her response came almost immediately. That's great, Jake. I'm really happy for you. I could sense the feigned enthusiasm in her words. She was trying to play nice, hoping to rekindle something, but that was never going to happen. I had moved on, and I wanted her to see that I was thriving without her. As the launch date for Tom's product approached, the tension in the industry was palpable. I had positioned myself to be a major player at my firm, and my boss had even mentioned the possibility of me leading our marketing campaign that would coincide with Tom's launch. The thought of being in such a high-profile position, especially when it directly contrasted with Tom's impending failure, filled me with excitement. The day of the launch finally arrived, and there was an air of tension at Tom's firm. I watched from a distance as they prepared for the big moment, and I could see the stress etched on Tom's face. He was in the spotlight, and not just as a leader but as someone who had put his reputation on the line. I felt a rush of exhilaration, knowing that soon I would witness the fruits of my careful planning. Meanwhile, we were organizing an event of our own, strategically planned to kick off our marketing campaign just days after Tom's launch. It would be a chance for us to present our innovative solutions while they faced the fallout from their product. The timing could not have been better. As I took my place at the podium during our own event, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I could see many familiar faces in the audience, industry professionals who had previously been aligned with Tom's firm. I launched into my presentation, outlining our cutting-edge technology and how it would transform the industry. The energy in the room was electric, and I could see the excitement growing among my peers. Afterward, as the crowd mingled, I noticed some attendees whispering amongst themselves, glancing over at Tom's team. The contrast was stark, and I could see my plan coming to fruition. My success was magnified by the chaos surrounding Tom's launch, and I intended to relish every moment of it. That evening, I received a text from Jenna asking how the event had gone. I shared the highlights, and she responded with her excitement about the future. "You're going to take the industry by storm, Jake. I'm so proud of you," she texted. As I replied, I glanced through social media and saw the backlash beginning to unfold for Tom's launch. Reports were surfacing about technical glitches, and the product was receiving negative reviews. I couldn't help but smile, knowing that I had played a part in this unfolding drama. The next day, I received an unexpected call from Lisa, the former colleague who had shared insights about Tom's project. "Hey, Jake, I just wanted to congratulate you on your success last night. I heard your presentation was incredible." "Thanks, Lisa. It was a great night for us," I replied, feeling the excitement bubble inside me. "I hope things are going well for you too." "I'm doing well, but I wanted to ask for a favor. Would you be willing to meet with some of my contacts? They're looking for alternatives after the issues with Tom's product," she said, her voice eager. I didn't hesitate. "Absolutely, I'd love to help." As I hung up the phone, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. My plan was evolving, and I was ready to capitalize on Tom's failures while continuing to build my reputation. I was determined to ensure he understood the consequences of his decisions, and I would do so by solidifying my own place in the industry. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown, and I was more than prepared to take my revenge. I was no longer just a husband seeking validation. I was an ambitious professional ready to rise above the circumstances that had once held me back. And with every step I took, I felt the weight of my past lighten, replaced by the thrill of the future. Success was not just a destination, it was my weapon of choice. As the weeks passed, my plans began to reach their climax. The fallout from Tom's product launch was escalating, and I could see my own career trajectory soaring with every misstep he made. His firm was struggling to recover from the negative reviews and technical issues, and I was poised to capitalize on that vulnerability. My meetings with Lisa and her contacts were fruitful, and I quickly became known as someone who could provide solutions when others failed. I was inundated with inquiries about our projects at Tech Innovators, and I started to feel a sense of accomplishment that I hadn't known since before Sarah's betrayal. Every phone call and meeting solidified my position as a leader in the industry, and I could hardly contain my excitement. But as I reveled in my success, I knew I had one final confrontation that needed to happen. I had to face Tom directly. It wasn't enough just to outshine him professionally. I wanted him to understand the personal ramifications of his choices. I wanted him to feel the full weight of his betrayal just as I had. One afternoon, I reached out to Tom, suggesting we meet over lunch. I knew he would be hesitant, but I wanted to catch him off guard. I still had his number saved from when he was my boss, and I shot him a quick text. To my surprise, he agreed, albeit with a tinge of reluctance. "Sure, let's meet." "Where?" I chose a well-known restaurant that had a reputation for providing an upscale atmosphere, one that would contrast sharply with the turmoil surrounding him. On the day of our meeting, I arrived early, feeling the adrenaline rush through me. I was ready to confront him, to show him just how far I had come. When Tom arrived, he looked harried and worn. The stress of the past few weeks was evident on his face. He greeted me with a forced smile, and I could see confusion mixed with apprehension in his eyes. "Jake, good to see you," he said, but the sincerity was absent. "Good to see you too, Tom," I replied, my tone measured. "I appreciate you meeting with me." We sat down, and I could feel the tension. I ordered a drink, and as we waited for our food, I decided to cut to the chase. I wanted to talk about what happened between us. I began, watching his expression shift. His eyes darted nervously. Look, Jake, I'm really sorry about everything. I never intended for things to go that way. Didn't you? I leaned in, my voice low and steady. You had a choice, Tom. You chose to betray not just our professional relationship, but also my trust. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I messed up, I know that, but you have to understand things got complicated. Complicated, is that what you call it? I replied, my voice rising slightly. You took my wife from me. You thought this would just blow over, that we'd all move on, but you underestimated me. His expression shifted, a mix of guilt and defense. I didn't mean for it to escalate like this. I never thought you'd take it this far. Take what far? Trying to build myself back up after the wreckage you left. I didn't hold back. I've turned my life around, Tom. I've taken every setback and used it as fuel to rise above. While your firm struggles, I'm thriving. Just last week, we secured a major deal that puts us ahead in the market, and now I'm being courted by clients who once looked to you for solutions. I could see the realization dawn on him, the weight of my words settling in. Jake, no, you don't get to make excuses, Tom. Your actions have consequences, and I want you to know that while you may have thought you were winning, you've lost everything. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving, and Sarah, she'll see it too. He looked down, defeated. What do you want from me? I took a deep breath, feeling the intensity of the moment. I want you to understand that you can't just walk away from the mess you created. You've hurt a lot of people, and now it's time to face it. I'll be watching as you try to rebuild your reputation, knowing that I'm the one who's taken your place in this industry. Tom sat in silence, the weight of my words hanging between us. I could see the impact of my success registering in his mind, the stark contrast to his current struggles. He finally looked up, a flicker of respect mixed with bitterness in his eyes. I guess I underestimated you, Jake. I nodded, feeling a sense of closure. That's right, and now you know. This isn't just about revenge, it's about reclaiming my life. I won't let you or Sarah define my worth any longer. As we finished our lunch, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. I had faced Tom, asserting my strength while making it clear that I was no longer a victim. I was a new man, one who had taken every challenge and turned it into an opportunity. After lunch, I returned to the office, a renewed sense of purpose propelling me forward. I was ready to continue building on my momentum, but I also felt lighter. I had confronted my past and reclaimed my narrative. In the following months, my relationship with Jenna deepened. We grew closer as we navigated our careers together, supporting each other through the challenges of the industry. I found a sense of happiness and fulfillment that I hadn't thought was possible after Sarah's betrayal. Reflecting on the entire experience, I realized that while the pain had been intense, it had also been transformative. I learned that I was capable of rising above the ashes of my past, that my worth was not defined by someone else's actions. I also discovered the power of resilience and the importance of surrounding myself with people who genuinely cared about me. I had taken control of my life, and with every success, I felt the weight of regret and betrayal lift. It was time to embrace the future, one filled with opportunities that I had fought hard to create. And as I looked forward, I knew that I was finally on the right path, one where I was the master of my own destiny.